Good early afternoon. We are live. I'm Andy Andrews. You've joined us on the Blue Plate Special. We are going to have a great time today. Hey, you guys, everybody, we have a ton of people in the studio audience. And Betty Ayers, greetings from Troy. Shanda Danner, how are you? Marcy Taylor. So you already watched the Professional Noticer podcast with Jonathan Young. He has a great heart. Must be a big heart. This guy is huge. I mean, he is huge. Martin Simmons, good early afternoon. Martin and Milton. And we still got them coming in. So we're glad to have you guys. Serena Stoll-Garner from stormy Arkansas. Understand that Arkansas weather, we're supposed to get it tonight. I think it's going to be coming this way. Christy Woods, my sister. Hi, everybody. Gina Christmas, how are you doing? Good to see you on here. We got people from all over the world that join us on this this Tuesday edition. Well, I actually have all over the world on the Thursday edition too. Shirley Greenfield Cope from Amarillo, Texas, 200 miles from everywhere else in Texas. I am dressed differently for this Blue Plate Special. I usually dress in one of $10 Lifestyle's t-shirts. And we thought we would do something different today, and that is we would record a piece for wisdomharbor.com. So if you're not a member of wisdomharbor.com, shame on you. It's cheap. It's great. Our stated goal is to create America's next greatest generation. And we do that by bringing together conversations between adults and young people. And that, can be any age young people. But conversations are not happening now. And so we're just making sure everybody has something to talk about. Diane Hale, good evening, East Tennessee. Jim and Heather, hey, how are you doing, McQuags? What are you doing in Plymouth, New Hampshire? I know you're on vacation. You probably you guys are always on vacation. Anyway, we got a good show. We're going to record it. And so during the show, Sony, how about making sure everybody out there has paper and a pen? If you have your own paper or pen or something you can mark on while we're doing this game, because we want you to be able to play along with the game while we're recording this. And so the Notes app on your phone will also work. So if you need real paper, I guess Sony will get that for you, but the Notes app on your phone will work too. But we want you to be able to play along with this and see how you did. And so we're going to do this show. Hey, Judy, we're going to do this show and record it straight through without any breaks. And then we'll be right back to the Blue Plate Special. But this will probably be 25 minutes long. And it is the game show that we have. This is, I think, the fourth episode of the game show that we call Be True or BS. So you get to decide. We'll tell a little story and you get to decide if this is true or not true. And we'll do 10 of them. And so just mark them as we go and what you think, and don't show it to your partner. But we will, after we get off the actual show, I'm gonna find out how you guys did. So, the actual recording. This is a show within a show, so I gotta keep my mind that is never straight. I gotta keep it kind of straight. So, also, if you're not a subscriber to wisdomharbor.com, you want to be. This particular episode is going to be released tomorrow. And so even though you're watching us record it now, you can watch again tomorrow and see the graphics and all that Matt puts on there and see it presented as a game show. Okay. And so, and then you can also play it for some of your friends, and you already know the answers, and you can watch them struggle. So a lot of fun to be had. All right. And so let's do this. Matthew, you ready? All right. Welcome to Wisdom Harbor's newest game show for family and friendly competition. I'm Andy Andrews, your host. How good are... let me start again. My mouth isn't working yet. All right, you ready? Welcome to Wisdom Harbor's newest game show for family and friendly competition. I'm Andy Andrews, your host. Hey, how good are you at spotting a lie? Well, it's time to prove it on Be True or BS. Here are the rules so you can play along at home. Make sure everyone in the room has a pen and paper. The Notes app on your phone will do as well. But number lines on your paper or your app 1 to 10. One at a time, I'm going to reveal an odd fact, most often in story form, and as each unfolds, it is up to you to mark down whether what you just heard is true or BS, not true. At the end, I'll disclose the answers and you can tally your score. Are you better than anyone else in the room at knowing a lie when you hear it? Let's find out. It's time to play Be True or BS. All right, here we go. Number 1. In 1841, after the British defeated the Khan for control of a part of India that is now known as Pakistan, Sir Charles James Napier was appointed the British governor of the region. He arrived to find that Hinduism had a rather nasty tradition that when a man's body was being burned at his funeral, they would toss his wife onto the fire too, so she could go with him, even though she was, at the time of the toss, very much alive. The practice was called sati. Sir Charles was horrified and ordered it to be stopped immediately, to which the Hindu holy man replied, "You promised you would not interfere with our culture, and this is a blatant violation of that promise." Sir Charles knew that the holy man did in fact have a point. The British had started trading posts, and as the local populations moved near those trading posts for opportunities, it was always the norm that each would not interfere with the other's cultures. But this practice was murdering innocent women. So Napier replied, "Then be it so. Since this burning of widows is your custom, you may continue doing so. But my nation also has a custom. When men burn women alive, we confiscate all their property and hang them. Therefore my carpenters shall erect gallows upon which to hang all the concerned when the widow is consumed by fire. Let us all act according to our national customs." Be true or BS? You decide. Number 2. During the Middle Ages, long before refrigeration, spices were used to mask the flavor of rotten meat. Spices commonly used to preserve or mask flavor included cloves, cumin, ginger, fennel, anise, cilantro, oregano, paprika, cayenne, and thyme. These spices often have natural antimicrobial properties that extend food shelf life while also adding flavor or masking unwanted odors. Where you want me to pick? Okay. And thyme. These spices often have natural antimicrobial properties that extend food life. Back. And thyme. These spices often have natural antimicrobial properties that extend food shelf life while also adding flavor or masking unwanted odors in animal flesh of any sort, to include fish. In 1996, a manuscript discovered in the archives of a 900-year-old church in what is now France points to an exact combination of spices to be used on the meat of stag, the modern equivalent to stag being beef. It calls for 2 parts crushed clove, 2 parts dried and ground ginger root, and 3 parts cayenne. The formula for masking the smell of decaying fish only added 1 part oregano to the mixture for stag. Now, modern researchers have determined that these exact ingredients used in these proportions do indeed mask the flavor of decaying meat, even actually preserving unrefrigerated red meat, pork, chicken, and fish for almost a week. Why is the formula not in common everyday use today? Apparently, those spices mixed together do not taste good. Tastes better than rotten meat, perhaps, but still not something you would choose to eat. Be true or BS? Number 3. Grooves have been found on the teeth of prehistoric human skeletons. For years, scientists assumed that those grooves were formed by trying to dislodge food from their teeth with sticks. Until 2016, when a skeleton was found in the French Alps with what turned out to be a single horsehair stuck between 2 molars, obviously having been used as a precursor to modern dental floss. As it happens, man has been flossing for centuries before 1815, which is when the American dentist, Dr. Levi Spear, I can't read. The modern dental floss. As it happens, man has been flossing for centuries before 1815, when the American dentist, Dr. Levi Spear Parmalee, introduced the idea of waxing silken thread to be used as floss. Be true or BS? What do you think? Number 4, As Time Goes By was the name of the second to the last episode of the television series MASH that aired, but it was actually the last episode filmed. Fans of the show refer to that episode as the one about the time capsule. The scene in which the time capsule was filled was shot on Stage 9 on Friday, January 14th, 1983, with studio and network personnel watching, plus dozens of reporters and cameramen. It was understandably very emotional for the cast and crew. Later that week, by themselves, the cast buried a real time capsule filled with props that were actually used on the show. It was Mike Farrell, BJ Honeycutt, who'd had the idea, and the waterproof Red Cross medical box was filled with personal memorabilia from the cast members of MASH. Clothing, including one of Klinger's dresses, part of the gin still from the swamp, cookware from the mess, and items from the operating room and from Colonel Potter's desk were all included. Jay King, a crew member on the show, dug a huge hole beside the parking lot the night before their last day, and in as much secret as they could muster, the cast and a very few crew members buried the time capsule and never returned. The land on the parking lot was sold several years later, and during some bulldozer work, a construction employee uncovered the time capsule. Attempting to return it to the cast and crew after he saw what was in it, the construction guy actually talked to Alan Alda, who told him, just keep it. He did, eventually auctioning several items that put his only child through college. Be true or BS? You decide. Number 5. Iron Eyes Cody was an actor, the definitive Native American in Hollywood films. In 1995, he was honored by the Native American community for his work. He was the famous crying Indian in the Keep America Beautiful public service announcement. Okay. I'll just do it again. Start it over. Okay. Number 5. Iron Eyes Cody was an actor, the definitive Native American in Hollywood films. In 1995, he was honored by the Native American community for his work. He was the famous crying Indian in the Keep America Beautiful public service announcement from the early 1970s. It was an ecology commercial in which an Indian sheds a tear after trash is thrown from a speeding car and lands at his feet. When the Crying Indian commercial aired, Iron Eyes Cody had already been working in Hollywood for more than 30 years. Ultimately, he performed in more than 200 movies, including The Big Trail with John Wayne. In the movie Sitting Bull, Cody played Crazy Horse. He did Nevada Smith with Steve McQueen and A Man Called Horse with Richard Harris. He appeared on television in programs like Gunsmoke, Bonanza, and Rawhide. In his bio and in interviews, Iron Eyes Cody always maintained that he had been born on a reservation in the Oklahoma Territory. He said his father was Cherokee and called Long Plume, and that his own real name was Little Eagle. For almost 50 years, he was the film and television industry's go-to guy to hire as an expert consultant on Native American life in order to bring authenticity to their projects. Cody, aged 91, died on January 4th, 1999. And in his house is where he died. There with his Native American wife in Los Angeles with their 2 adopted Native American sons at the bedside. Soon after his death, the New Orleans Times-Picayune broke the story that Cody was actually born as Oscar Conti in Kaplan, Louisiana, the second son of immigrants from Sicily, Italy. His parents owned a local grocery store in Guydan, Louisiana, where Cody or Conti was raised. DNA tests were also performed and provided, but as it turned out, no one even cared. Iron Eyes Cody was our favorite Indian. After all, he had portrayed everyone's idea of one for more than a half century in Hollywood, the media center of the world. And he did it without ever having a drop of Native American blood. Iron Eyes Cody was 100% Italian. Be true or BS? Number 6. On June 15th, 1859, Lyman Cutler, an American farmer, found a pig rooting in his garden and eating his turnips. This was not the first time it had happened, and so the farmer, Cutler, tired of it, shot and killed the pig. He was simply defending his own property, he said, in accordance with U.S. law. The owner of the pig, Charles Griffin, claimed that the territory was actually Canadian and that British law applied rather than American law. Cutler also owned livestock that he allowed to roam freely, and the 2 farmers had lived in peace until this incident. Cutler offered $10, the equivalent of $400 today, to Griffin to compensate for the pig, but Griffin was not happy with this offer and demanded $100, equivalent to $4,000 today for the pig. At the end of the day, Cutler believed he should not have to pay for the pig because the pig had been trespassing and destroying his land. When British authorities threatened to arrest Cutler, nearby American settlers called for military assistance of their own. Brigadier General William Harney ordered Captain George Pickett to lead the farmers' defense. You will remember that 4 years later, then Major General George Pickett led an ill-fated charge at Gettysburg, losing 2,655 men in less than an hour. But back to the pig war. After significant escalation, a couple of months later, 461 Americans with 14 cannons were opposed by 5 British Royal Navy warships mounting 70 guns and carrying 2,140 men. By September, President James Buchanan sent an emissary, General Winfield Scott, into the breach, imploring him to talk some sense into everyone and not let men lose their lives over some squabble about a pig. Ultimately, General Scott did just that. And despite the taunts and name-calling continuing for more than a decade, no human lives were actually lost in the pig war. Be true or BS? What do you think? Number 7. Here's a great example of how much words matter and how careful we should be when telling someone, especially a child, what is and isn't possible for them to achieve. There are some great expressions used to emphasize that a thing will never, not in a million years, ever happen. Among these sayings are when pigs fly, when fish climb trees, when monkeys fly out of your butt. Another descriptor of never in a million years, for a long time, was the phrase, "We'll put a man on the moon before that happens." Those words were exactly the ones spoken by San Francisco Giants manager Alvin Dark when asked by a reporter if his young pitcher, Gaylord Perry, could hit. "Let me put it this way," the famous baseball manager replied. "We'll put a man on the moon before Gaylord Perry hits a home run." 8 years later, on July 20th, 1969, Gaylord Perry was in the middle of what would turn out to be a Hall of Fame pitching career when he walked to the plate against Claude Osteen of the Los Angeles Dodgers. It was the 3rd inning, Perry's first at-bat in the game. Gaylord Perry was the only pitcher ever to win the Cy Young Award in both the American and National Leagues. That and his 314 career pitching wins are what got him into the Hall of Fame. And National Leagues. That and his 314 career pitching wins are what got him into the Hall of Fame. As a hitter, however, this was the 547th time Perry had gone to the plate in a big league career that would document his lifetime batting average at 133. Pathetic, even for a pitcher. A few minutes earlier, over the stadium's PA system, the announcer broke the news that at 1:17 p.m., the Apollo Lunar Module Eagle had safely landed Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the moon. And then there was Perry walking to the plate at 1:44 p.m. A few practice swings, and he was ready. Then at exactly 1:46, Gaylord Perry hit a Claude Osteen fastball into the left field seats. 8 years after an offhand comment by an expert that we would put a man on the moon before Perry hits a home run, only 29 minutes after we did indeed put a man on the moon, Gaylord Perry did his part and finally hit a home run. Be true or BS? Number 8. Following the death of Pope John Paul II in 2005, the papal conclave elected and confirmed Pope Benedict XVI as head of the Catholic Church and sovereign of the Vatican City-State. Almost immediately, people all over the world began to search the internet for PopeBenedictXVI.com. The traffic on the site quickly ramped up to more than 1,000 hits every minute. For several days, it was not apparent where the messages were going. Then, to its horror, the Vatican discovered that the Catholic Church did not own that domain name, They did not own PopeBenedictXVI.com. Furthermore, neither did they know who did own it. For almost a week, the Vatican was near panic, until an investigator revealed the domain was owned by Rogers Cadenhead, a young man who lived in Florida. Knowing that the website Vegas.com had just paid $90 million for LasVegas.com, and that Casino.com and Slots.com were additional purchases at $5.5 million each, the Vatican reached out to Rogers Cadenhead with extreme trepidation, for the young Floridian had the Catholic Church well and truly over a barrel. More than a month before the conclave, Rogers Cadenhead registered 6 likely pope names as domains. Included in his purchases was PopeBenedictXVI.com. Now it appeared he would determine how many millions the Vatican would have to pay for the domain name of a pope they had already announced. As luck would have it, however, Roger Cadenhead's grandmother was Catholic, and as he explained to Vatican lawyers, she would not be happy if he took money from the church. Would they, the young man asked, be interested in a trade? Barely breathing, one attorney indicated that, yes, they might be. What did he have in mind? 3 things, he answered. I want a week in the Vatican Hotel. I want complete absolution for anything that might have happened on March 19th, 2002. And I want one of those tall hats like the Pope wears. His requests were quickly agreed to and contracts were signed. The Vatican, of course, now owns the domain for PopeBenedictXVI.com. Rogers Cadenhead is happy too. There is no indication, however, of how often he appears in his hat. Be true or BS? Number 9. Ivan IV was crowned the first Tsar of all Russia in 1547 and maintained his power until dying in 1584. Ivan IV, also known as Ivan the Terrible, was a sadist and likely certifiably insane. But crazy or not, Ivan was a Tsar. No, allow me to correct that. Ivan was the Tsar. And he didn't simply kill people. Ivan massacred whole populations. His methods including drowning and roasting people alive or torturing victims with boiling or freezing water. These procedures were consistent with Ivan's view of being God's representative on earth with a sacred right and duty to punish. Curiously, as vicious as he was to human beings, Ivan loved animals. His pets included a turtle named Ruby, a baby elephant, 3 white rats, and an actual human dwarf named Humphrey, who sat under the table when Ivan ate in order for the emperor to rest his feet on the dwarf's shoulders. Humphrey was actually the 3rd dwarf to work in this professional capacity for Ivan the Terrible, and the only one to keep his job until the death of Ivan. The first 2 dwarves were executed. Number 1 for falling asleep under the table. The second having been accused of looking up the queen's dress. Humphrey, of course, did none of that. He was respected by Ivan and the entire royal court. Less than 30 years after his own death in 1602, Humphrey was canonized by the Roman Catholic Church. He remains in the official list of more than 10,000 people who have achieved sainthood. And his title on that list remains the same as it was when it was bestowed more than 500 years ago. Humphrey the Dwarf, patron saint of little people. Be true or BS? And here's number 10, the last one. The following is a clearly defined reference point used on time charts created by the Mexican American Society for the Preservation of Shared History. The first reference of this is marked at 1539 with the arrival of Hernando de Soto. According to historians, that is the calendar moment when the people of what would eventually become Mexico began referring to any people in what would eventually become the United States as Anglos. In fact, the American people referred to Americans and Europeans.
You said Americans are Mexican.
What?
I think you said, in fact, the American people referred to Americans.
Oh, okay. All right. And Anglos. In fact, the Mexican people referred to Americans and Europeans as Anglos for a bit more than as Anglos. In fact, the Mexican people referred to Americans and Europeans as Anglos for a bit more than 300 years. It wasn't until 1846 that everything changed. In 1846, with the advent of the 3-year-long Mexican-American War, the slang referring to a white person became gringo. Oddly enough, not only was gringo not even a word at the time, it was an American misunderstanding of what Mexican soldiers were saying as they taunted their adversaries that created this new term. At that time, because camouflage clothing was still unknown, Americans were easy to spot in the deserts of Mexico. Their green uniforms stood in stark contrast to the brown landscape upon which they fought. Green was what the Mexican army had in their minds from the first time they spotted American troops. Green was the enemy. And green become part... Green was the enemy, and green became part of a taunting battle cry used constantly. Green, the American... Ready? And green became part of a taunting battle cry used constantly. Green, the Mexican troops would yell, "Go home! Green, go home!" It wasn't long until American soldiers decided the Mexicans were calling them gringos. They had no idea what it meant, but began referring to each other in the same way. The word gringo was even used by General Winfield Scott to refer to himself during negotiations to end the war with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Scott's counterpart in the negotiations, General Don Luis Garrison, had no idea what General Scott had just said and ignored it. A full 10 years passed with Americans calling themselves gringos before the term was in common usage on both sides of the border. Be true or BS. So there they are. If you've been playing along at home, you have your ballots marked. Now it's time to take a breath and see how you did. Number one, in 1841, Sir Charles James Napier was appointed the British governor in a region of India when he found out the Hindus were burning live wives with dead husbands in a traditional rule Number one, in 1841, Sir Charles James Napier was appointed the British governor of a region in India. When he found out that the Hindus were burning live wives with dead husbands in a traditional ritual they called sati, he put a stop to the practice by declaring that the British tradition was to hang any man who did that. That is true. That is true. That actually happened. Number two, The Middle Ages recipe of 2 parts crushed clove, 2 parts dried and ground ginger root, and 3 parts cayenne, used for curing and prolonging the life of decaying meat, worked well during that time and is actually a plausible modern-day preservative, if anybody could stand the taste. That is BS. You know, rotten meat is just rotten meat. Yeah, I don't care what you put on it. It's still going to taste like rotten meat. And when it starts rotting, it's going to be rotting. Okay? So that's BS. But it sounded good, didn't it? Okay, number 3. For years, scientists assumed that those grooves found on the teeth of prehistoric human skeletons were formed by trying to dislodge food from their teeth with sticks. Until 2016, when a skeleton was found with a single horsehair stuck between molars, a precursor to modern dental floss. That's a great story, isn't it? And it's true. Absolutely true. Number 4. After a time capsule was buried for the MASH 4077 on television, the show's actors decided to do it for real. The cast buried their own time capsule filled with props that were actually used on the show. It was placed in a hole dug by the parking lot. Years later, a construction worker found the time capsule and tried to return the items. Instead, Alan Alda urged him to keep it. That would have been really nice for Alan Alda to do. And he did. It's true. True. Number 5. Iron Eyes Cody was honored by the Native American community for his work in film. He was the famous crying Indian in the Keep America Beautiful public service announcement. He performed in more than 200 movies and was the film industry's expert on Native American life. And he did it all without ever having a drop of Native American blood, because Iron Eyes Cody was 100% Italian. I just would feel bad, like knocking down an American icon like that. But it's true. True. It's true. He was 100% Italian. Not an ounce of Native American blood in the man. Number 6. On June 15th, 1859, Lyman Cutler, an American farmer, finding a pig rooting in his garden, shot and killed it. He was simply defending his own property, he said. In accordance with U.S. law, the owner of the pig claimed that the territory was actually Canadian and that British law applied. This dispute between neighbors escalated to a standoff by 461 Americans and Navy warships carrying 2,140 sailors. Ultimately, after much negotiation, no human lives were actually lost in the pig war. It's absolutely true. Didn't you read about that in history class? It's absolutely true. Number 7. Baseball manager Alvin Dark once said to a reporter, "We'll put a man on the moon before Gaylord Perry hits a home run." 8 years later, America put men on the moon. 29 minutes after that, Gaylord Perry hit his first ever home run. It's unbelievable, but it's true. It's true. Number 8. It was Rogers Cadenhead, a Florida resident, who registered the internet domain name benedictxvi.com before the new pope was chosen. And this guy, this young man, actually describes himself as the author of several technology books, and he had registered 6 names earlier in the month based on what he thought the new pope might choose. It's true. it's true. Makes you wonder what was happening in March 2002, doesn't it? Got to be something to do with spring break. Number 9, Ivan the Terrible was likely insane, but curiously, as vicious as he was to human beings, Ivan loved animals. He especially loved the actual human dwarf named Humphrey, who sat under the table as a footrest when Ivan ate. Less than 30 years after his own death in 1602, Humphrey was canonized by the Roman Catholic Church. He remains in the official list of more than 10,000 people who have achieved sainthood. Humphrey the Dwarf, patron saint of little people. It's absolutely total BS. In fact, I made that up this morning. Number 10, here's the last one. The Mexican people referred to Americans and Europeans as Anglos for a bit more than 300 years, until 1846 and the Mexican-American War. With camouflage clothing yet to be invented, the Americans wore green uniforms. Green, the Mexican troops would yell. Go home. Green, go home. Green, go home. It wasn't long until American soldiers decided the Mexicans were calling them gringos. Within a decade, the term was in common usage on both sides of the border. BS. It's a great story, though, isn't it? So how did you do? Did you do better than those playing with you? If you correctly identified 5 out of 10, that's an average score. You could have done that well by guessing. If you identified 6 or 7 out of 10, you probably won the room. 8 or 9 out of 10, you need to place some bets next time you play. If you correctly identified 10 out of 10, there's a job waiting for you with the CIA. Rerun this game for some of your family or friends and see how they do. Teachers, this is a great way to create discussions in history class. That's it for today. Be ready soon for another episode of Be True or BS. Whew. Man, you know, I never screwed up during that whole thing. I didn't have a single screw up during that whole thing. And if you don't believe it, just watch the thing when it airs tomorrow, because there won't be a screw up in there. Okay, Serena Gardner got 7 right. Chris Gold got 7 right. All right, how many of you, is there anybody in the studio audience that only got 3 right? Anybody that got 4? Come on now, come on. Anybody with 5? I got a whole bunch of them at 5. Okay, anybody with 6? A whole bunch of them at 6. Anybody at 7? A bunch of them at 7. 8? Got 2 at 8. Anybody at 9? So 8 is the best. All right, that's good. Shanda Danner said, I'm terrible at this. I only got 3 right. Well, I mean, we're doing our best to make you terrible at it, you know? We're doing our best to make it. Marcy Taylor got 5 out of 10. Tim Patton, 8 out of 10 correct. That's the best we got in the studio today, too. You got 9 out of 10, missed number 6. What was number 6? You remember? Which one was number 6?
The Lyman Cutler one, about pig.
The pig war? Okay, all right. Got you with the old pig war trick. Anybody else? What did anybody get? You know, I love doing this. And we do this occasionally as a show for the for wisdomharbor.com, which there's plenty of things on there, a lot of things with history and English and music and audiobooks. Dana Kilpatrick got a 4. You know, for a long time, everybody in the office here, in the studio, Sony, Julie, SB, Matt, they were doing a good solid 4 or 5, you know, and I was pretty proud of that. But now they just go into it just assuming I'm lying about everything. So that brings their, you know, it's like the one that seems the most true, they'll vote no on. But that's not playing the game correctly. That's playing against me. That's not playing the game. Got to play the game. Got to listen to the story. All right. Well, enjoyed being here with you guys today. Be true or BS? No, I actually did. I actually did enjoy being with you today. And it's sunny outside, kind of windy. We got the Arkansas weather coming soon. And we'll see you guys. Let's see. We'll see you Thursday. Tomorrow morning, I'm on the Rick Burgess show. Many of you who listen to Rick Burgess, I'm on during the 8 o'clock hour Central Time. And they're on like 70 stations. So I don't know exactly where, but I love doing that show. I love Rick and Speedy and Greg and Adler, and so a whole bunch. They're a lot of fun. But I will be thinking about you tomorrow. I'll see you Thursday. Have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.